Hello and welcome to another video in a series of videos on Azure Data Factory. My name is Mitchell Pearson, and today we're going to take a look at executing an Azure Data Factory pipeline from Azure Logic Apps. So integration between these two different tools. Now, there's going to be many reasons why you might want to do this. There's many ways that you can execute a pipeline that you've built and created and designed inside of Data Factory. Right, you can execute these via PowerShell. You can do this through an API call. We're going to show you how in this video to do it through an Azure Logic app. Now, one of the biggest use cases for when you might want to do this is when you want to do an event-based trigger. Now, if you don't know this already, you can actually do an event-based trigger within Azure Data Factory. However, that has some limitations. So if I wanted to create a trigger right here, I said add, and then I do new. I can create a trigger is, by the way, just essentially a job, right? I want to kick off a job. And so I can come down here and I'm going to create a new, I believe it's right here. There we go. And when I go to create a new trigger, you'll see we can do schedule, we can do tumbling window, or we can do event. Now this is exciting, right? But unfortunately, since this has been released, the only thing that's really been available is the only events you can do is when a blob is created or when a blob is deleted. What if you wanted to create an event-based trigger that was when a new record gets inserted into a SQL database, or when a new record gets inserted into a SharePoint list, or when something is updated, or what have you? Well, right now, inside of Azure Data Factory, as of today, that's really not an option, but we can leverage Azure Logic Apps, which opens up a world of when somebody tweets, when somebody sends an email, when somebody does this. Literally, it opens up a world of possibilities. And so we're once again able to extend the capability of Azure Data Factory by this integration that it has with Azure Logic Apps. So let's take a look at how we would do that. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. We're going to cancel that, close that right there, go away. There we go. And I'm going to create a new pipeline. So let's go ahead and create a new pipeline real quick. This is going to be a very simple, very easy pipeline. And we'll call this one something like number 9. And let's call this, call me from Logic App. All right, call me. And then we're going to do parameters here. Now, in this pipeline, I want to create a parameter, and I'm going to call this, because I want to show you, this is tricky. This is actually kind of hard. I want to show you how to pass in a parameter from Azure Logic Apps. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. So wait time, integer, and we can give it a default value. We're not even going to give it a value. Now, all we're going to do in this pipeline, keep it very simple, is I'm going to bring in a wait activity, right? So I'm going to bring in a wait activity. Where are you at? Wait activity, there you are. And then inside of the wait activity, I'm going to zoom out. We'll go to settings. You'll see the default setting is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add dynamic content here. And the dynamic content is going to be that parameter that we just created. That's going to be pipeline.parameters.waitTime, right? Pipeline.parameters.waitTime. And then we'll click finish. So this wait activity is going to run for whatever length of time is assigned to that parameter that we just created called wait time. Now what I'm going to do is that Azure Logic App is going to get triggered by some kind of event, whatever it is, whatever is available inside of Azure Logic Apps, and we are going to pass in a parameter to this pipeline that we just created. Now, let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to go back over here. This is my server. I don't want to change that. Delete files. This is my previous Logic App. So let's go ahead and create a new resource. And this is going to be a Logic App that we create. There we go. This should be a pretty quick video here that we're going through. Shouldn't take too long. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new resource group. So we're going to do that. It's going to be YouTube, or use an existing rather. And then let's give this a name. So I'm going to call this ADF call pipeline. All right. And then click review and create. We're going to click create. This is going to go through the process of provisioning that resource. Doesn't take very long. As soon as it's done, we're going to go directly to that resource and we are going to create some kind of trigger. Now, I think for this example, I'm going to actually show you something else here. I'm going to show you how we can set it up so that when a record is inserted into a table in a SQL database, an Azure SQL database, it's going to trigger that flow, and then we can actually take that and we can call our pipeline. Now we could take the parameters from the table, right? We could take values from that and we could pass those into the pipeline. But for this example, we're going to try to keep this relatively simple. So we'll go ahead and go over to that resource. And this time I don't see the trigger that I want. I don't see it right away. So I'm going to go ahead and do a blank logic app. Once again, we could set this up on so many different options, right? Azure Blob Service. We could use, Azure Data Factory. Well, that's terrible. That's not going to be a trigger. That'll be our action. But we're going to do SQL Server. So let me go ahead and grab SQL Server here. And then you'll notice we have one in here that says when an item is created. So when a row is added to a table in a database, that's going to be what kicks off this data factory pipeline. It kicks off the logic app, which kicks off the data factory pipeline. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that guy right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new SQL Server instance here. And I'm going to call this one Azure SQL. Let me give it a name. And then this will be, my Mitchell Pearson server that I've created. There we go. I already have one here, so I'm trying to not use that one. Get out of here. Oh, that wants the actual server. It doesn't let me name it. All right, so I'm going to go over here and steal the server name from the server that I have. This is an Azure SQL database server. Let me go ahead and copy that out. And then I'm going to paste that in. I have one that I've already created, but just so you can see the process of creating this. You son of a gun. Enter a custom value. There you go. Stick. All right. I'm going to choose my database from that server right there. And then I have to choose my SQL table. And I have a table here called YouTube channel that has a list of a few of my YouTube videos. I don't keep it updated. I just created that on the fly for a previous video, but that's okay. And then I want to say, hey, this runs every 3 minutes. I'm not worried about that. Once I insert the record, I'll kick this off manually anyway. This is the part that's actually, this is good. So we're going to do that. Now, we're going to add a new step here. And the new step is I'm going to create a variable. And the variable is going to be initializing a variable. And we'll give this a name. Now, what I'm doing, what you would normally do is you would say when a new item is created in SQL, then you'd have an action that actually goes to SQL and gets those rows and returns them. And then if you wanted to pass those parameters into your data pipeline, your data factory pipeline, you could do that, right? And so that's just a little bit more heavier. That would be a much longer video than what I want to do here. So instead, I'm going to let this pipeline, this logic app that we're building, I'm going to let it be triggered by a new row being inserted into a table. So I'll pull Management Studio over here. You'll watch me insert that record and you'll watch this kick off. Then I'm going to create a variable inside of this logic app that essentially tells it how long to wait. So we'll give this a name of wait time right here. So this is my wait time. This is going to be an integer value. And then we're going to give it a value of 6. All right. So 6 seconds is how long I want that wait activity over here to wait. And we need to publish this real quick. So let's go ahead and publish this so it'll work. All right. All right, so that's done. We're going to add another step. Now this is going to be the step where we call Azure Data Factory. And what I'm going to do is create a pipeline run. So we're going to create a pipeline run. Let's go ahead and click on that guy right there. And we're going to go through a couple of questions, right? What is your subscription? What is your resource group? We know that it's going to be YouTube. There we go. What is my data factory name? Mitchell SQL, YouTube, Mitchell SQL. Follow me on Twitter. And then my pipeline. And the pipeline we want to call is call me from Logic App. All right. Now we have to add our parameter. Now this is the part that was a little bit tricky to me. When I click on parameters and then I click away, it just says parameter. And so what I want to do is I want to map my value of wait time, that's 6 seconds, that comes from the variable we just created. I want to map that to the parameter that's in the pipeline, right? But it's not able to tell when I pull in my pipeline name 9_ call me from Logic App, which is our Azure Data Factory pipeline. This isn't able to pull in that metadata information. It doesn't know what parameters there are, which is kind of unfortunate because if you remember, if you watched my previous video where we called a logic app from the pipeline, when we called that logic app, it automatically recognized, no, it didn't, did it? No, we had to write the body of the event. So it goes both ways. I don't know what I was thinking. It goes both ways. So we have to do the same thing here. We actually have to write some JSON code that allows us to create a key value pair that says this is the key inside of the Azure Data Factory pipeline, and I want to pass in this value from my logic app to that parameter. So that's what we're going to do here. So we have to write some code. That's just the way that we have to do this. And so we'll do something like this, and then we'll come down here. The key is going to be wait time. Hopefully I'm correct on that. And then we're going to do a double quote. So double quote the name of the parameter that you want to call that's in the data factory pipeline, colon, double quote. And now I can call my variable that we created, and then I can do a double quote. So this is the tricky part. This is where people get caught up when they're working with this. It's the exact same thing that we did in our previous video. We built out that JSON code. I told you then that it was a pattern. I've used this pattern for so many different things, not even Azure Data Factory related, because it's just building the body of a JSON structure. Now, what we want to do is it looks like this is set up and this is correct. I am going to check and double check and make sure that it's wait time, and it is. So I'll go ahead and save this guy right here. And then, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and pull over Management Studio. All right. And we're going to insert a record. I'm just going to manually insert a record real quick, and we'll call this one, Data Factory. You can see where I already tested this guy out. Call Logic App again. Oh, I thought I was still typing there, but it said, no, you're not. And then we'll put in here, testing.com. All right. And then we'll put in a date, 1/1/2012. None of this matters. All we're trying to do is, boom, we're trying to save a record in this table. There we go. So we've created a new record in that table there, which means that our Logic app is going to trigger. Now remember, we set this up to check every 3 minutes, so it doesn't trigger right away. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. I'm going to manually kick it off. It's going to pick up that happened, and you'll see down here that it's currently running. And if we refresh, it says that it succeeded. Now you can always take a look at your Logic app here and see what happened, right? You can look at the details here. So we see that when an item was created, it initialized the variable here. 6 seconds was the value. We didn't change that. Then it created a pipeline run. And if we look at this, we'll see that that wait time variable, we passed in that variable. So we passed in a value of 6, that key value pair. If we go down a little bit further, we might be able to see some additional information here. Nope. All right. So we're going to go over to our data factory. Now, hopefully this published before that. What will happen here is if you want to see this, you have to go over to your monitoring tab. And so right here, number 9, this is the one that just got executed at 10:49 p.m. It took 8 seconds to run. If we click on it, we can take a look at the details of this run. And I really just want to find out more specifically, this wait activity that got executed, how long did it wait for? Did we accurately pass in 6 seconds? And if I click on the input right here at the bottom, so whenever you're looking at an activity, you can see the inputs and you can see the outputs. When I click on the input right here, we'll see wait time in seconds, 6 seconds. So it worked. We created the key value pair. We now executed the data factory pipeline from the Azure Logic Apps, and that's really all there is to it. You can obviously build this out to be much more robust. The benefit of Logic Apps is that you can build it to be just so intelligent, right? It can be super smart, super intelligent. I like Power Automate. I like Logic Apps, kind of the same tool, right? A lot. And so you can do some really robust, really cool stuff with that. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed another video on Azure Data Factory. And if you did, hit like, subscribe, and all that other stuff people talk about. Yeah, and I'll see you in the next video.